What if you had a partner in your health journey? Someone who didn't just tell you what to do, but helped you figure out what actually works for you? And what if instead of feeling overwhelmed by midlife changes, weight gain, brain fog, anxiety, fatigue, you had someone in your corner helping you cut through the noise, stay motivated, and create a personalized plan to thrive? Today's guest is going to walk us through exactly how health coaching can do just that, how it empowers you to take ownership of your health, build sustainable habits, and create a vision for the strongest, most vibrant version of yourself. Welcome back to Pleasure in the Pause, a podcast dedicated to empowering midlife women to connect to their bodies, pleasure, and power through perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. I am your host, Gabriella Espinosa, women's health and sexual wellness coach. And today's episode is all about reclaiming your health, not by pushing harder or doing more, but by getting the right kind of support. Because in midlife, you don't need another protocol. You need partnership. You need personalization. You need someone who truly listens and helps you align your lifestyle with the future you want to live. That's exactly what today's guest, Jill Foos, does. Jill is a national board certified health and wellness coach based in Chicago who specializes in longevity, prevention, and helping midlife women navigate change with clarity and confidence. She's the founder of Jill Foos Wellness, host of the Health Trip podcast, and a head health coach for Respin, Halle Berry's wellness platform for menopausal women. With health certifications from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, Jill's approach is grounded in science and tailored to real life. Her own health journey through thyroid surgery, hormonal shifts, and postmenopausal burnout gives her not just credibility, but compassion. In today's conversation, we'll explore what a health coach really does and why it could be the missing link in your wellness journey, how coaching helps you move from confusion to clarity, what a midlife wellness vision is, and why it's a powerful tool for long term health, the mindset shift from chasing weight loss to building health span, and how to start taking back your energy, confidence, and power one intentional step at a time. This is a conversation about living fully, aging wisely, and getting the support you deserve. Let's welcome Jill to Pleasure in the Pause. Welcome, Jill, to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me here, Gabriella. It's so nice to be here today.
I am looking forward to this conversation. You and I met at an event in New York where I heard you speak on the power of having a health coach in midlife. And I so loved your talk. And I thought this would be the perfect opportunity, perfect platform to share with my listeners the importance of health coaching and the power of having someone like you or a health coach to be by their side in their midlife health journey. So I'm so excited to get into this conversation. Your story is so powerful, and I know so many women listening will be able to relate. Can you take us through your journey? How did you go from navigating your own midlife health challenges to becoming a national board certified health and wellness coach, now helping midlife women?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing health coaches to the forefront. We are still not that known out there. So I'm really glad that you're going to allow us to have that conversation. But as far as my story goes, it goes way back to when I was around 16. I was a high level horseback riding competitor and I never really felt great. And perhaps it was the lifestyle I was living, the food I was eating, whatever it was. It was the one thing about my life way back then that really facilitated me to reconnect with my body and reconnect with what are the things I'm doing that are making me not feel as well as I want to feel. And as an athlete, you really want to always be on top of your game. And I wasn't always. So that was really going way back then. Also, I recognized that the lifestyle my father lived was very unhealthy. And that was something that I never wanted for myself. He was a typical sedentary midlife man who didn't eat well, took medication to get his day going, took medication to end his day, and really just didn't have a whole zest for life. And I really early on in life recognized, okay, these are my genetics and I do not want any part of that. I want to go down a completely different path. So, very early on, I was really dialed into a lot of things that were surrounding me and really dialed into what made me feel good and what didn't make me feel good. Once I had my kids, I had some health issues. I had a partial thyroidectomy. So that's when I had half of my thyroid removed after my fourth kids. And that was really the start of a lot of health issues for me. As your thyroid gland is so
Mm.
important, it regulates so many things in our body, including our hormones, our hair, and our weight and mood, sleep, libido, you name it, it's involved in it. And so I started having a lot of health issues because of that. I went on to have a fifth child, but after my fourth child, it really was a struggle for me to get back to that game, to that optimal wellness that I so passionately wanted for myself all the time. So I experienced in probably my early perimenopause, I really experienced a lot of hair loss. I experienced weight gain, weight loss, sleeplessness like insomnia, loss of total libido. In fact, at one point, my ovaries were producing almost zero testosterone, and I was in my early 30s at that point. My energy levels were not there. I was like my father. I had no zest for life. And also, I started having cholesterol issues that I became very much aware of early in my 30s. So, a lot of these issues compounded and made me really tap into my lifestyle. So fast forward in midlife, what else happens in midlife besides menopause is divorce. So I went
Mm.
through a divorce about 8 years ago at this point. And that also created some major chronic stress and anxiety in my life. So, on top of everything else, and also managing my five children and managing my divorce and managing this new life I was going to create for myself, which is exciting, but also comes with anxiety and the fear of the unknown. I had a lot of stress. So I really had to figure out how was I going to manage my stress and how was I going to recreate my new life for myself where I felt really good about myself and that health vision that I had since I was a teen.
Wow. I also had a partial thyroidectomy after I had my kids. And I'm thinking, yeah, I had a lot of health issues after that, but I never equated that with that. I just thought it was because I was a stressed out mom. I was managing a lot of things, a lot of plates were spinning. I do now reflect, and I think, like you, that was like a tipping point for a lot of health issues that followed and set me off on my own health journey of trying to figure out what was going on. So I love that we have those parallels. And I love that you're now role modeling for your kids
Yeah.
what it's like to be a healthy person. I've seen pictures of you on Instagram with your mother who's what, 80,
She's 84 now.
84, and she's, oh my gosh, she looks amazing.
She's crushing
So
it.
so you do have that side of the genetic pool working for you, and I'm glad that you really took your health into your own hands, and I'd love to talk about more about how you do that and how you do that for your clients. For those who might not be familiar, what exactly is a health coach and how does working with one differ from seeing a doctor, nutritionist, or personal trainer?
Yeah. So a health coach is, think of us as a collaborative partner on your journey. So when people go to the doctor, you may leave the doctor's office with a poor medical diagnosis, right? Perhaps you have a thyroid disease, perhaps you have type 2 diabetes, or you have the beginnings of heart disease. Whatever it is, maybe you leave and the doctor says, here's what I want you to do in your lifestyle. I want you to change this and this. But they don't really give you a map to how that's going to happen. Or perhaps you have just a health goal in mind. Maybe you want to prepare for a mountain climb, a very challenging climb. Perhaps you want to run a marathon. Perhaps you want to change your body composition. So it doesn't always have to be a medical diagnosis, it could just be something personal. A health coach is someone who can come in and be part of that journey with you. We are a collaborative partner. What we don't do is tell our clients what to do. We're curious. We want to know, why are you looking to make this change? What is on the other side for you? What is that vision for you? And just like you stated a few moments ago, that you didn't really connect the dots between a partial thyroidectomy and all these other health concerns, that's because in our healthcare system, when we go see a specialist, they're not there to tell us, oh, by the way, you might experience this and this in the years to come or the decades to come. They don't connect the dots for you. So we have to do a lot of investigating on our own. And a health coach is someone who can join that journey with you with a lot of their knowledge on lifestyle interventions and make you start thinking, inspire you to think and get curious about your own journey and your own life, your own family history, the choices you made in the past that didn't work, and bring together an equation that is unique to you. I truly believe that everybody has a unique health equation. There are definitely some common denominators, but overall, we have a unique health equation specific to our needs and to get from A to B.
Yeah, definitely. There's not like this one stop solution for everyone. We hear that conversation a lot right now in the conversations around hormone therapy. It really needs to be this bespoke approach to your health. I love that you talk about this wellness vision for midlife women, and you emphasize that midlife is an opportunity to pause and reflect and truly create that vision for ourselves. Why is it so important? And how can women start crafting their own wellness vision? What are the first steps in putting pen to paper and designing that long term roadmap for their health?
Yeah. The first step is recognizing that your vision in your 20s and 30s, and perhaps even your 40s, is going to look different than your new wellness vision in your 50s, 60s, and 70s and beyond. When we go through menopause, and I'm a postmenopausal woman, I have a different view of where I want to be in my life moving forward in the next 2, 3, and 4 decades than I did when I was in my 20s and raising 5 little kids. So, really acknowledging that things can change and that's okay, and things should change and evolve. So, the first thing you really want to think about is, for me, what do I want for myself as I age? I like to do an exercise where I have my clients close their eyes and really just envision what their life will be like when they're in their 70s and 80s. This is not our mothers or our grandmothers or our great aunts' menopause anymore. We aren't going to have the same journey that they have because we have a lot more information at our fingertips. We know a lot more about this journey. So the first thing is, one, acknowledging that the journey is going to look different. And two, really taking that time to envision what it is that you want. What is your why, and connecting with your why. So, like, for example, my why is I have 5 kids and they're going to be married. I have one that's married and they're all going to have grandchildren one day. And I want to be vibrant. I want to be energetic. I want to be strong. I want to live independently. I want to be of use to my family and to my children and to my grandchildren. I want to be someone who can keep up with them and participate in their lives in an active way. I also have a partner and I want to be sexually active. So, what is part of my vision is, how will I continue this journey of sexual pleasure for myself? And what does that look like? So, really just mapping out all the different components of your life and connecting with what is your why. And everybody's why is a little bit different.
I love that. Yeah, I just spoke to Jackie Janelli, who was a nurse practitioner. She was on episode number 47, I believe. And we talked about sex span, right? As part of like health span. So there's lifespan, health span, and sex span. So health span, why don't you talk to us what health span is? How do you differentiate it from health span? And why do you see sex span as a crucial part of that puzzle?
So I look at health span and lifespan a little bit differently. So lifespan is the duration of one's life, right? From when we're born to when we die. But health span is different. It's, what is the status of our health during our lifespan? And I want my health span to be strong and vibrant and independent, all the things I described a moment ago. I want it to be filled with life and zest and pleasure. Sex span, especially as a divorced woman, especially as a postmenopausal woman, I don't want to end up in my 70s and 80s and not being sexual with the partner that I love, that I find so pleasurable now. I don't want that to go away. It might have to look a little bit different then, but I certainly don't want it to go away. So, what are the things I can do now in my life? What are the things we all can do now in our lives to make sure and set ourselves up for the things that we want in those future decades. And
Yeah.
part of that is our sex life.
Yeah. And it's totally possible. We've had experts here. I had Dr. Lori Mintz refer to a study that was done by a sexual health researcher who wrote the book Magnificent Sex Lives, where she followed the lives of people in their 60s, 70s who were having incredible sex lives. And there were various factors involved in that. And we'll address some of that because a lot of that is lifestyle, nutrition, a lot of the things that you talk about in terms of how we live our lives. But as we move into midlife, our bodies change. They're meant to change, right? I often talk about how instead of resisting that change or feeling like we need to fix ourselves, that we need to really step into that change as an opportunity. I know you, as a health coach, see all these changes as a wonderful invitation to create the best, healthiest lives possible, right? But we can seem to be overwhelmed by the changes happening in our bodies, weight shifts, brain fog, fatigue, and more. How does a health coach help women cut through the confusion of what's going on in their bodies on an emotional level, but also work practically with women to create a sustainable plan for their well being?
Yeah, I think it's really important to bring trusted resources to the conversation, trusted resources and trusted authorities. There is a lot of noise out there. I get overwhelmed by the noise as well. I'm like everybody else. And health coaches, we are trained with evidence based information. We are trained to look for trusted resources and we know where to go. And so, one of the things that I can do for my clients is bring forward that information and those resources so that they know, okay, this is the current science, this is what's going on, and I'm going to quiet down the noise. I think a lot of us also might follow people on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, whatever it is, where there is a lot of noise coming in and it does get very overwhelming. So, can you pull that back a little bit? Can you tidy that up so you're not having all this incoming noise while you're on this journey for yourself that you want it to be evidence based and science backed? So that's one way. Another way is helping my clients find grace and patience in the process. And I think that mindfulness is something that really can shine here. I've been on my own mindfulness journey for the last 13 months, and it was the piece of the puzzle that was missing for me. I'm dialed into a lot of my lifestyle interventions and have been for a long time. But the mindfulness piece was something that I wasn't really dialed into. And so I've been on a mindfulness journey. And that's something that I'd like to bring awareness to midlife women too, because we're often in this sort of sandwich relationship between maybe we still have some young adult children at home, and maybe we're also trying to help and support our aging parents or even grandparents. And so we're also trying to navigate this physiological change, transition of menopause ourselves. Perhaps, like I said, some people might be going through a life stage of divorce or whatever it is. And so, how can we find grace in that and just slow down and take a deep breath and discover what our mindfulness practice is? And by the way, a mindfulness practice is as unique to everybody as their fingerprint or their gut microbiome. There is no one size fits all. And that's why I hesitated finding my own mindfulness practice for so many years, is because I thought it had to look like one thing. You know, in my mind, it looked like a room in your home with all these pillows and a Buddha statue. And for some people, that might be the way it is for them, but that didn't resonate with me. So, what else is out there for you? And get curious about what are the ways. And maybe in the beginning, it's just an exercise of brushing your teeth and being mindful about how the toothpaste feels on your teeth and on your tongue and how long it takes and what are you smelling and what are you feeling, all the sensations. Just start with something really mundane that's so intuitive to you and dial yourself into that. Maybe you're folding laundry. So there's a lot of ways to start on a mindfulness practice, but I will tell you that my mindfulness practice has really helped me, especially in the bedroom. My mind, like so many other midlife women, could go into 17 different directions, right? I forgot to call the vet for a vet appointment. I need to fold this laundry. I'm on a plane in 24 hours and haven't packed. There's a plethora of things that could go on in my head. And so mindfulness has really helped me stay present in the moment, which is what mindfulness is, being present and in the moment, so that you can enjoy that space. And so, if you are on a body composition journey where you're looking to lose fat or gain lean muscle mass, that takes time. That doesn't happen in 7 to 10 days. If you're on a hair loss to a hair growth journey, that takes even more time. It could take 6 months to a year to see profound difference. So, really, just pausing and finding grace in this space with mindfulness is something that I think is very beneficial to midlife women.
Yeah, you bring up the point about how long it takes, right? I'm on my own strength training journey and it takes time. The results are slow, but they do happen.
Yeah.
And I love the way that health coaches hold their clients accountable. Can you talk a little bit about that accountability and how important that is? For me, just to give you an example, my husband is my accountability partner because when he's working from home, which he does, we go to the gym together, we go for walks together, he cooks healthy meals for us. Sometimes when he travels, he's gone, that kinda all goes to shit. Or going to bed early accountability. I was telling you how I haven't been sleeping very well this week because he's not there to say, "Gabriella, it's time."
Mhm.
And we need that accountability because we're human, right? We're gonna be distracted with different things, but going back to your point of using mindfulness, that is a good practice of really holding yourself accountable. But how do you work with clients to hold them accountable?
We always create goals at the end of our sessions.
Mhm.
And for some people, one goal might be enough. And for others, they might want 3 or 4 goals. But whatever the goals are, I give my clients access to me during the week if they want to check in. But these goals are small steps that can be sustained over the period of just a week, right? We just do a week at a time in the beginning. And this goal has to be something that the client is ready and willing to do. It's not my journey. It's not my goal that I'm setting up for this client. It's something that they're ready and willing to wrap their head around and dig into and do the work. Because, by the way, making healthy lifestyle changes are hard. If they weren't hard, we'd all be doing them and we'd all be doing them really well. They're very difficult. And so the accountability is this is what I've committed to with my coach to do for myself. And we do a week at a time so that it's small, manageable steps. And sometimes my clients come back and say, "Oh boy, Jill, you're going to be really mad at me. I didn't do it more than X amount of times." And I always say, there are no mistakes. There's no mistakes. Everything that you do is a learning moment for yourself. It's a learning moment of, oh, I forgot to do something, and that equated to me not feeling better that day. Or I did remember to do something and I saw the difference. And I often talk about a buy in moment. There's a buy in moment where, as you were saying, like it takes a long time to build lean muscle mass, it takes a long time to grow hair. But there's a buy in moment where all the things you're doing meet and connect, and you see a difference. And you're like, oh, wow, okay. I did the hard work. I kept it going. I stayed accountable and compliant. And now I'm seeing a result. And that's that special moment where you can then add on other goals and just keep layering on top of this strong, healthy foundation.
Yeah, I love that sense of accountability, having someone there. And I've worked with health coaches, and like I said, right now, my husband's my accountability partner, and it really does help. I love it. I love that sense of really having someone check in on you and having that level of support. You talk about creating a longevity code, which I love that term, longevity code. Can you break that down? What does it mean to personalize your approach to longevity?
Yeah, so like I was saying in the beginning, I believe that everybody has a unique health equation. So you can use the word health equation or the phrase health equation, or you can use longevity code. To me, it's about looking at those pillars of health. So we've got exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress management, and having a sense of community and belonging. And so using those pillars of health and knowing that everybody is going to utilize them differently, those are the common denominators, but really honing in on all of those pillars of health, what they mean to you, and how you're going to best execute finding your way from point A to point B. So you can't start with all the pillars of health at one time. That would be super overwhelming. So what resonates with the client the most? We're sometimes I use a technique called agenda mapping, where like I have a piece of paper and in all the different bubbles are all the pillars of health. And maybe some of the bubbles are left open for the client to add in something else that they desire. And where on this agenda map do you see the place you want to start? So maybe it's nutrition. Maybe you're a midlife woman and you really want to hone in on your nutrition because you've been reading a lot about increasing your protein and increasing your fiber. And this seems like something that you desire, that you really want to work on. So I think breaking down all of these pillars of health into small, sustainable steps, like I've been saying, is one way to start finding out what is your longevity code. And by the way, your longevity code or your unique health equation has to bring you joy first and foremost. If at the end of the day, it does not bring you joy, it's not going to be sustainable in the long term. Because right now we're in our 50s, maybe some of us are in our 60s and 70s. Whatever we figure out is that special code unique to us has to last for the rest of our lives. We are postmenopausal from here until the day that we're not here.
And genetics plays a role in
Mhm.
this. You talk about understanding your health history, really having that be part of the equation. We often hear your genes are your destiny, but that's not entirely true. You use the example of looking at your father saying, okay, I'm not going to go down that path. Can you explain the role of epigenetics, how our lifestyle choices impact our genetic expression and overall health? I find this field so fascinating.
It is such a great field. So genetics so like you said, we're dealt this deck of cards and or this hand says here's all of your genetics. But it's the choices that we make in our lifestyle that really have an impact on if those genes are expressed higher or brighter or if they're dimmed down low, right? So you can't ever turn genes on or off. I don't like when people say if you do this, you're going to turn your genes off. They don't turn off, they just don't perform as well as they should. And other ones we don't want outperforming. So I think this is really helpful to know certain genetics about your family because for hair loss, for example, you might have androgenetic alopecia, which is what I have. And so it's always so helpful to know if there is a diagnosis, so the optimal path for you to take to repair and to restore your hair. Take the guessing out of it. So my dad and my grandparents and my great grandparents all had heart disease. In fact, my mom, who you mentioned at 84, is the only living senior in our family. Heart disease runs in our family. So I did look at my heart disease genes, and I have horrible genetics when it comes to heart disease. I have genetics for obesity, type 2 diabetes. These are things that I've really, because of my partial thyroidectomy, these are things that have been affected by that surgery. And so I've had to modify my lifestyle based on my genes, based on my wellness vision, so that I could support my genes in a way that's going to have them be expressed positively for me, function higher. I have something also called the MTHFR gene. I don't know if you've ever talked about this on your podcast, but the MTHFR gene is very common. We all carry the gene, but sometimes we have a SNP on it. A SNP means a single nucleotide polymorphism. So it's the way I describe it is if you have a pen and it's like a perfect pen, you could have a heterozygous SNP on it, and all of a sudden the pen might not have a top, so it's going to dry out and maybe work at a 70% capacity. Let's say you have a homozygous SNP on a gene. Now you don't have any ink. So now your pen's only working at maybe a 30% capacity. So that's something that I have alongside many people, all five of my children, my partner's children. Is very common. But when you know this about yourself, you can make lifestyle decisions and choices and go on a path to help support that gene and give it a little bit of boost. So for me, that might mean I have to take some specific supplementation. It might mean I have to stay away from fragrances and perfumes and synthetics because that hampers and dampens my body's ability to get rid of toxins in my body. So I've shaped my lifestyle around knowing these genetic components to my life from my family, which has really helped me in terms of feeling optimized and reaching that goal for myself.
You talk about genetics and the MTHR gene. That requires additional testing, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to prevention, what would you say are some of the top lab tests or screenings you recommend for women in midlife? So to find out if you have this MTHR gene, what kind of test would you do to find that out? And what are some other tests that you
Yeah.
recommend?
Most labs have it. When you go in for your annual, you can ask your doctor if they'll just add it on, and maybe you have to pay a small fee for it, but it's not an expensive test. When you're doing genetic testing, you only have to do it once, right? Because it's not going to ever change. Some people can do some of the consumer friendly ones online too. What is there's like a DNA testing online that you can do just paying cash, but your doctors can also order these. One of the ones I think is truly important is if you have a family history of heart disease and the MTHFR gene is connected and associated with an increased risk of heart disease, which is why I got it. So if you have a family history of heart disease like I do, and I know my genetics are poor there, I went further and I got a genetic test called the ApoE test. And this is testing the Alzheimer's gene. And that's, again, you do it once and you can find out what your allele composition is. So there's a 2, a 3, and a 4, and they come in pairs. So you're a 2-2, a 2-3, a 2-4, and so on, just with these 3 numbers. But when you have that ApoE4, which I do, I have a heterozygous mark on that. That means that my risk for Alzheimer's disease is at a higher risk than if I didn't have it, right? It doesn't mean I'm going to get Alzheimer's or
Mhm.
dementia. It just means I'm at a higher risk. It's also correlated with cardiovascular disease risk. So I know my risk is higher than if I didn't know that. So what do I do with that information? I've been able to modify my lifestyle. I've been able to modify my diet to support my goal, which is not to have heart disease, right? So I eat more of a Mediterranean style diet. I used to be a lover of very fatty meats. I'm from the Midwest and I love a good ribeye, but I don't eat those anymore. I eat more lean meats and I bring in other healthy fats. So, getting this information has really helped me shape my trajectory, my path. So, that's a very easy test to do with your physician as well, or you can
So
order it
can
on.
I pause you there for a minute? When you work with the client as a health coach, are
Yeah.
coaches equipped to help guide their clients through the results of these tests, especially, say, a genetic test? Are all health coaches equipped with that skill?
No, I would say that when you're getting genetic testing through your physician or even through one of these online consumer sources, they usually have genetic coaches who are trained in reading the genetics. I just happen to know about it because it's a passion of mine and I love it. But what I can do as a health coach is if my client is worried about heart disease and they have a family history, or if my client is worried about hair loss because they have on both sides of the family a lot of hair loss, a lot of balding men. We used to just look at it from the mom side, but we now know it can come from both sides. You can do genetic testing for hair loss to see what type of hair loss are you going to be predisposed to.
Mm.
So there are genetic counselors who are specifically trained to read this data and interpret this data and help guide that person on a journey.
Excellent. Okay. And so what other labs would you recommend besides genetic testing?
I think that every midlife woman needs to bring on board either a preventive cardiologist or a lipidologist or their general practitioner if they are well versed in cardiology. So, this is a time when going through menopause, we know that our risk for heart disease increases. We know that heart disease is still the number one killer for both men and women. So, to me, during midlife, really tapping into and assessing your risk for heart disease. So, looking possibly at advanced lipid panels if there is a family history of heart disease. For some people, a standard panel might be okay, but if you have that family history and other risk factors, then getting an advanced panel. And so, not all general practitioners or internists are well versed in cardiology. So, really looking for someone who has gone beyond the walls of their knowledge and really learned how to order and interpret these.
Okay. Any other tests that you would recommend?
I think an advanced comprehensive thyroid panel. We know that as women go through menopause that women can develop thyroid disease. We also know that women can develop autoimmune diseases during menopause. So there's a lot of changes and this is when we can open up the conversation to building your healthcare team and making sure you're checking off all the boxes. And someone might be listening and thinking, "Oh gosh, I hate going to just one doctor. Now I've got to go to 5." You might have to stop in and just have an annual here and there, but just check everything out. Make sure everything inside is working harmoniously together. We want all of our hormones to be working together as an orchestra. And when one guy's off, or one lady's off, the whole orchestra is going to be playing off.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about building a healthcare team
Mhm.
and that it looks different than when you were in our 20s and 30s. Can you talk about what an ideal healthcare team should include and why it's important to take a more proactive approach with this?
I think the obvious one in midlife is an OBGYN and a
Mhm.
menopause specialist. And the OBGYN you might be using now, who delivered your babies, might not be the provider that you keep on moving forward in menopause. They might not be well versed in menopause. So bringing on a menopause specialist for sure. I'm sure you've done a lot of podcasts covering that. And then we just talked about a GP, a general practitioner, or an internist, or a preventive cardiologist, someone who's well versed in looking at your overall blood work, ordering comprehensive labs if necessary. But there's a lot of medical providers, but I want to take this moment to go beyond the hospital system and look at also financial advisors. Being financially healthy and responsible is something that midlife women could use a little bit more strength in that area. I know I did when I was going through a divorce. Also looking at a therapist. Are you emotionally where you want to be, or do you need a therapist? There's nothing wrong with going to a therapist. They're amazing. How about a pelvic floor therapist to work on your sexual wellness? That's a key component there. How about a fitness trainer? Perhaps you don't even like cooking and you want to learn how to cook so you can nourish yourself, taking cooking classes, hiring a private chef that might be able to instruct you as well. And some of these things do cost out of pocket. They're not covered by our insurance, but we're not looking for long-term relationships with them. We might just need a little boost here and there. So I think setting up a healthcare team goes beyond the walls of a healthcare system and into other areas of our life where we don't have the strengths that we want.
You raise a very good point about having the financial advisor on board. I went through that process of working with a financial advisor. And what I loved about it was that I got to let them know, okay, what are my priorities moving forward? And health is a big one. So I want health to be a big component of my future and where I allocate my resources. Because as we know, our current health system, we sometimes have to go outside of insurance providers. And I don't want to jeopardize my health because my insurance doesn't cover a particular provider or doesn't cover a fitness trainer or this specially trained cardiologist. I sometimes have had to go outside of my
Right.
health insurance to find those specialists. And before I used to stop and say, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can afford this. Is it wasteful? But I don't want to feel that way. And so when I worked with my financial advisor, I made sure that my future could ensure that a pot of my money, a pot of my reserves was just dedicated to my long-term health. So
Yep.
whatever happened, I could just go outside the system and really find quality healthcare. And I think that's important. That's one of my kind of value systems and one of my priorities is just investing in my health, seeing my health as an investment. Not
Absolutely.
damage.
So you're touching on such a great subject, which is what values do you hold as a priority for you? And that's going to help drive your decision making. And just like a health coach is a collaborative partner on your health journey, a financial advisor is like your financial coach. They're not there to tell you what to do. That's your money, but they're there to help advise you, bring ideas to the table, managing your finances through a different lens, opening up your curiosity about managing your money. And they're there as a collaborative partner on that journey. It's very similar to working with a health coach. And I also like to add, making sure you have a dentist. You would be surprised how many women forget going to the dentist, and also a dermatologist.
Mm.
I, 4 months ago, was diagnosed with stage 1 melanoma on my neck. And I have an amazing dermatologist. I go once a year, and my kids all go once a year for mole checks. And it happened to be my appointment was coming up within 2 days of me seeing a new mole that I didn't notice before. And sure enough, it was stage 1 melanoma and it required surgery. And thank goodness it was caught very early. But a lot of women don't go to the dermatologist enough. Our skin is aging and it's changing because of the loss of estrogen, and we need to be on top of our skin health as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I want everyone to just go get the
Yeah.
financial advisor and make sure you reserve a pot of your future money to taking care of all these aspects of your health. I
Yes.
really think that's so important. I'm willing to forgo the expensive resort vacations and focus more on my health for sure moving forward. I've seen you on your Instagram address supplements. There's such a hot topic. There's so much information out there. It can feel overwhelming. And you've recommended some interesting supplements that I'd like to ask you about. What are your top recommended supplements to support longevity, especially for women navigating menopause and beyond?
First of all, I'd like to say that it is out of scope of practice for a health coach to tell or prescribe supplements for their clients, unless, of course, they have an additional license. Perhaps they're a nurse or whatever. That being said, what health coaches can do in this area is bring forward information on trusted resources and trusted authorities in terms of what supplements to take. So for me, I love creatine. I actually tried to take creatine for myself many years ago, and it did not work for me. I felt bloated for 8 months. I could not feel comfortable taking it and tried a few different brands. But taking creatine, it's still something that I highly recommend for midlife women. I'm a very rare case when it comes to not being able to take it, but taking creatine helps to build that lean muscle mass. You're not going to take creatine and you're not going to get lean muscle mass automatically. You still have to do the work. You still have to eat your protein and you still have to get into the gym and lift those heavy weights. However, you need to work up to that. But creatine also has amazing cognitive benefits. And that was the one thing that I felt that was so great that it made me very sad that it's not something that I can continue on. But creatine, definitely for midlife women. Another one that there's not a ton of science around is collagen. There's like mixed science, but there is one type of collagen that does have a lot of nice science, and it's called Verisol. So, Verisol bioactive peptides. So, this is a proprietary ingredient that's put into other brands that create collagen. So, I like to use collagen because this specific collagen has been shown in the science to support hair growth and your skin. And so, those are the two reasons why I do it. Other ones, I am a big proponent of a really good multivitamin, also with trace minerals, because we aren't getting those vitamins and minerals from our soil, from our food, like we used to. And again, going back to these genetic SNPs, these single nucleotide polymorphism, sometimes we need more than what we can get through our food system that doesn't supply enough. So to me, a great multi and vitamin D is another one that most people
Mm.
should be taking, especially us northern where we live in the north like Chicago and above, and we're not getting a lot of that sun. And even if you are in a really sunny area, it's not like you're walking around outside naked and just absorbing it all over our skin. And maybe perhaps you're also wearing sunscreen, which is blocking the absorption anyway. So I think vitamin D is a necessary one.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Technology. Let's talk about technology. I know that you have your finger on the pulse of the latest health and wellness technology. It's come a long way. I sometimes see you on your Instagram page modeling some of these devices. What are some of the latest devices you recommend for midlife women, especially for managing menopause related challenges and optimizing long term health?
Yeah. So there are some really great devices out there. And my number one go to is red light therapy.
Mm.
So I have a high quality red light therapy cap that I wear every single night. I travel with it, it goes everywhere with me. My mom had chemotherapy this past year for bladder cancer, and I got her a red light therapy cap. And not all red light therapy caps are equal. So you want to make sure you're getting a high quality one. It is an investment. This is not an inexpensive at home device. So it is an investment that you're making for the long term. This is a red light therapy cap that's going to help create energy in the cells in my hair follicles that are going to help my hair follicles grow. So to me, making the investment is something that I'm going to have with me for the next 30 plus years. And here's the thing, when you spend the money on these at home devices based on your specific needs, they don't work if they sit in the corner.
Yeah.
So you have to be ready to stay compliant. Think about what it means to you because it's a lot of money to spend and you want to be able to get the benefits out of the ongoing use. So compliancy is a big factor for many people to think about. Along with the red light therapy cap is I sit in front of a red light therapy panel every day. I don't have a big wall panel. I have one that's like small, a small square. I like the small square one. I sit in Buddha style in front of it so it can hit the totality of my body. And I do that every single day for anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. So we know that red light therapy is excellent for wound healing. In fact, when I had my stage 1 melanoma surgery 4 months ago, I had 100 stitches in my neck. And I used the red light therapy on it, and the healing went so quickly. The doctors could not even believe it. So, wound healing, red light therapy, sitting in front of a box helps you with your circadian rhythm. If you're having trouble sleeping, you could use it in the morning and it helps to regulate your circadian rhythm. We know that it helps with energy production. So, in all of our cells, we have these little organelles called mitochondria, and the mitochondria are there to convert nutrients and other things into energy for our whole body to use. And you need energy for your hair to grow, you need energy for your skin cell turnover. We need energy for a lot of things. So those are my two favorites for sure. We also have red light therapy for your vaginal walls, the Joylux that Halle Berry is behind now. So that has some science around it as well.
I'm so fascinated by red light
Yeah.
therapy. And because it's like a new modality, I've been having a little bit of trouble just, okay, starting the habit. For example, I know everything that you're saying about red light therapy, I research and I know to be true. But like for me to go to a red light therapy sauna, there's so many here in Austin, Texas. I just can't get myself to get out of the house and go to one to make an appointment. That feels inconvenient. So I like that you're talking about a portable one
Yeah.
that we can use, or even the red light cap. I like that it's portable. It's something that you
Right.
have in your house. But yeah, starting a new habit around these kind of things. What is your advice? If you were my coach and you're trying to get me to use that, the Joylux vaginal red light therapy, which I haven't done, like, how do I get started? Yeah,
It's cumbersome creating a new
yeah.
healthy habit, and especially if you're inserting a red light therapy device in your vagina. So it's when during the day can you commit to 3 days a week? Start with just 3 days. I think all the Joylux requires is 3 days a week anyway in the beginning. But like any red light therapy, even with a cap, right? What can you do 3 days a week or start with 1 day a week? I would have my client map out what day of the week they're willing and ready to start and at what time. We get very specific. This is when we create something called a SMART goal. We want to set a SMART goal from beginning to end. What day are you starting? For how long are you going to sustain that day? Are you going to do it for a month? Are you going to do it just for a week, 2 weeks? What is it? What time during the day? What will be going on around you? What are things that you might have to not be doing so that you can lay still and let this device? Are you reading a new book? Are you enjoying something new that you can do while you're laying there for 6, 7 minutes? It's not a long time. It's a very short time if we're talking about the vaginal device. If we're talking about sitting in front of a panel, same thing. What day are you willing and ready to start? Where are you going to put it in your house that's convenient? Do you need to set up reminders? And also always connecting with your why. Why are you
Mhm.
buying it in the first place? Why is doing this healthy habit important to you? And how can you remind yourself of that healthy habit every day? And eventually it becomes intuitive. For me, all of these things are very intuitive, like brushing my teeth. I don't even think about it anymore. But in the beginning, it is very cumbersome and hard to stay on track. And that's why I always say start with one thing at a time.
I'd love for you to, if you can, give us the names of the red light therapy devices you've talked about so I can include them in the show notes if that's
Sure.
okay.
Absolutely.
And as you were talking, I was thinking, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to write it down in my diary like I do my hair appointment. That's something that I have a go-to hair appointment every week, same day, same time. Yeah, I'm going to do my red light therapy in the same way.
It has to be scheduled in, whether it's on your phone, set as a reminder. I'm old school, so I love sticky notes. So I still have sticky notes reminding me to do certain things. So anytime I bring on a new habit for myself, if I add a new supplement, if I add a new powder to my pre workout drink, it's cumbersome and clunky in the beginning, and then it becomes intuitive.
Yeah. So good. Thank you so much for that. I wanted just to touch on, because you mentioned it earlier, you focus on environmental health, so reducing toxic load in our homes, in the workplace, even while traveling. What are some simple and powerful ways to minimize toxins in our daily lives? Because I know this is becoming such a huge topic.
Yeah. When I travel, the one thing I do is I bring my own steel water bottle. I know at a lot of the big airports, they have filtered water, so I don't have to rely on buying plastic water bottles. So that's one thing that I can do. And I wash it out every night when I'm at the hotel and I can reuse it the next day. And I feel really good about not drinking out of plastic water bottles. Other than that, traveling can get hard because we're in a hotel and we can't really control the cleaning products that they have. And I always have headaches and I always don't feel my best when I'm traveling because I know there's toxins in the air from the solutions that they're using on the surfaces, going back to that MTHFR gene. And so things at home, all of our cleaning supplies, I make sure are free of toxins. And you don't have to spend a ton of money on this stuff. And I wouldn't say go home and empty out your cleaning cupboard and buy all new stuff. When you're done with something, replace it with a better for you option. And on Amazon, there are some really great options that I buy in bulk. I forget the name of the company. Maybe it's called something Revolution. And I buy these huge bulk containers of cleaning supplies for surfaces, for the bathroom. They're all non toxic. And then I have separate, smaller size spray bottles that I pour it into so that I'm saving money. I know that I'm using a high quality product. I'm buying in bulk, so I have less waste. So that's something we don't have to go to the grocery and buy top of the line cleaning products. There's ways to shop more savvy than that. Also putting in house plants, right? You see that I have a couple,
Mhm.
3 houseplants behind me, and houseplants are, first of all, they're wonderful to have in the home, but they also help reduce air toxin.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I have houseplants all over my house. So
Mhm.
I'm and I think also making sure that if you have any external cleaners, I think now it's at least here where I live, it's easier and affordable to bring in outside help for doing a once a week full house cleaning, which is what I do. But to your point, just making sure that they're using your products that are
Yep.
more natural based, because a lot of them come with their own products and
Right.
they do the
Right.
cleaning. I am definitely going to look at the brand that you recommend, and afterwards we'll place it in the show notes because I think
Yeah.
that's a great tip. So, for women who are listening who are feeling a little bit stuck or overwhelmed or like it's too late to take control of their health, what would you say to them? What's one small step they can take today to start moving toward a longer, healthier future?
I would say it's, first of all, never too late to start. Even if you're 78 or 84, it is never too late to start. I would say the first place to start is reconnect with your why. What is your why? Write it down. In maybe there's 5 whys. Just write all of the whys down, why you want to live a healthier, more vibrant, independent life, which is a goal for all midlife women. We don't want to land ourselves in assisted living or a nursing home. We want to stay strong and vibrant and independent and have freedom of movement.
Absolutely. I just wanted to share a personal anecdote. I have been doing the rounds of nursing homes
Mhm.
because we have been considering one for my mother, who's still relatively okay, but we've been thinking about assisted living. And oh my goodness, you only need to step into one to figure out your why. And to go into these places and realize that most of the elderly who are in there are women. And no matter how nice these homes can be, these women are either in wheelchairs, are not very mobile. There are issues. I remember going on a tour and one of the tour guides said, "Oh, okay, I can't take you to this wing because our seniors on that wing have issues with incontinence." And I'm like, "But why aren't they doing anything about the incontinence for these seniors, right? There's vaginal
Right.
estrogen, there's things."
Right.
I know that we all are in that period of our lives where we're looking after our elderly parents. Go to a nursing home. Pay
Right.
yourself a visit to an assisted living home, and you will see what sadly the future holds for people who have not taken the time to care and invest in their health. And yeah, to your point earlier, yeah, I think my big why is I don't want to be that burden for my children. I'm experiencing that right now and love my mother and I want the best for her. And but it is like taking care of an extra child. It's like mothering again. I'm mothering my mother right now.
Yeah.
And it takes time, it takes effort. And the emotional drain that it takes on me is something that I don't want for my children. So that's definitely a big why for me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jill, for coming on to the show. You've given us so much food for thought, so many light bulb moments as I've been hearing you speak. How can our listeners find you? And wait, I wanted to also add what's another step is hire a health coach. Hire a
Right.
health coach.
Yeah,
Find
if
someone that
you're right, if you're struggling and if you're what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same things over and over again
Yes.
without having results. If you're still not getting the results that you want and you're struggling, a health coach doesn't have to be there forever. It might be the boost that you can gift yourself so that you can identify all of these nuances to your lifestyle and discover that unique health equation for yourself and be on your merry way.
Yeah. So
Yep.
how can our listeners find
Yeah.
you and your services?
So my website is jillfooswellness.com. And on my website, I have a podcast called the Health Trip Podcast, where I feature lots of doctors similar to you, but not really an emphasis on sexual wellness, but more an emphasis on just midlife women's health in general. I do complimentary 30-minute virtual consultations with all prospective clients where we can talk about your health goals and see if we're a good match. We're not the best match for everybody out there. So we want to make sure that the collaborative partnership is going to be symbiotic. And I'm also on Instagram at Jill Foos Wellness, and I have a YouTube channel, Jill Foos Wellness, and Facebook at Jill Foos Wellness, and I'm on Twitter as well.
Thank you, Jill. This has been such an enlightening and inspiring conversation. I love how you emphasize that longevity isn't just about living longer, it's about living well. And to everyone listening, what's one takeaway from today's conversation that you can apply to your own life? Maybe it's getting a key lab test, rethinking your healthcare team, or simply committing to one small change in your daily habits. Whatever it is, remember, it's never too late to start investing in your future self. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe to Pleasure in the Pause so you don't miss out on future episodes. And as always, keep tuning into your body, your pleasure, and your power. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much, Jill, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pleasure in the Pause. Want to help me spread more pleasure in the world? Hit the share episode button and send it to a friend or post it on your Instagram stories and tag me, Gabriella Espinosa. And if you really love this podcast, please leave a rating or review, as this helps the show get in front of new listeners. Finally, if you would like to access even more pleasure and stay in touch, sign up for my free pleasure upgrade bundle of powerful mind-body practices by going to pleasureinthepause.com. Remember, your pleasure matters.